Dustin, I'm going to hand things back over to you to take on the conversation. Dustin's going to touch specifically on our approach to cloud operations and optimization. He's joined by David Gaffney, who's one of our cloud solution engineers here at InterVision. I have the pleasure of working with David very closely as we roll out new services and solutions. And the big piece, he's extremely experienced. And the big piece I wanted to highlight about David is he's always has the customer in mind. You know, as we're building out our solutions and services, it's really what's the best possible case for our customer, and he brings that to the table day in and day out. So Dustin and David, I'm going to turn things over to you, and I'm really looking forward to you hearing more about the approach that we take with operations and optimization in the cloud.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, Dave, it's great to be presenting with you again. And yeah, I'll echo exactly what Chris said. What's awesome about Dave is not only is he thinking about how we position our customers really well with the products and services that we have to offer, he's really listening to what is going on in the industry and to what you say specifically, and helping us really further develop the right solutions and products that we can bring to market to proactively serve you as well. So it's my pleasure to go through this presentation with you.
Thank you both for the kind words.
Yeah, well deserved. So we talked a little bit about readiness. We've talked about migration, and now it's time to get into that operations and optimization phase. And what really strikes me, and you're going to hear a lot from David that kind of dovetails on everything you just heard from our friends at AWS about how you get excellent at managing the cloud and what the options are to doing that. You know, one of the things that we hear a lot from organizations, and we touched on it earlier, is how do I help my staff make this jump, right? We talked earlier about, you know, we've gone from a traditional hardware model to a software model where it's all consumption based. And now organizations are faced with the challenge of taking traditional infrastructure engineers and transforming them into software engineers. And that means they've got to understand everything about, you know, how code is developed and what all good code hygiene is, and what it means to have an effective CI/CD pipeline and tool chain. And because we want to do these things with fidelity. And we talk about security by design, and the reason this is so important is that, you know, now we still, like we talked about, want a good security posture with the appropriate firewalls and barriers in place to keep bad actors out. But now that you're doing everything as code, keep in mind, like, one piece of bad code, even unintended, can generate a lot more risk than anybody coming in from the outside can. So we have to maintain a good security posture and get your staff to adopt these good skills. And so we talked about earlier about what it means to really embrace your core competencies, right? Staff your organization to support your business, not commodity-based services. And really the management of your cloud-based infrastructure, even your on-premise infrastructure, those things are our core competency. They're not our commodity. We're the commodity provider, right? And I think about this relative to, you don't go generate your own electricity for your house, right? You buy it from somebody who provides power to the grid. And so there's having an organization that takes care of managing your environment for you so that you can focus and staff to develop and deliver solutions that make the most measurable value for your company. That's where organizations get the greatest value out of consuming the cloud and making this shift to a consumption-based model, right? So invest in your differentiators and really think about, how do you gain and leverage the insight from what we're doing so that we can keep you informed on staying ahead of the curve, looking at those new products and services that are coming to market to make you more effective and efficient at leveraging them. So operating the cloud can be a really big challenge here, right? You've got to think about security and compliance and scalability. This is that shift left stuff that we talked about earlier, and now we want to automate it. We've got one of our customers that we're working with. They are automating transportation, and located in the Bay Area, and this was one of the big things. And matter of fact, they are kind of starting with this security by design as far left into their foundational element as they possibly can. And my hat's off to them, because if you get the security thing right now, it's not a toss it over the wall and make it somebody else's problem. And also, we talked earlier about the right culture, making security everybody's responsibility in the organization will pay dividends, right? On top of that, how do we automate, right? How do we get defects to out of production? Well, you remove the human element. Not that we're taking humans out of the equation, but don't have manual processes. Automate as much as you can. And in the cloud, everything is code. So operating that to that model can become more challenging if you don't have the skills and experience to do that. And operations has to be part of your pipeline. It's part of your definition of done. And so many organizations are starting to make this shift away from infrastructure and operations towards site reliability engineers. Dave, when you talk to customers, do you hear about these kind of shifts in priorities as you talk to our customers?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think it kind of dovetails with what you were talking about earlier, Dustin, and that is, you got to decide as an organization what skill sets you want to keep in-house and what skill sets you want to leverage from other organizations. What's core, what's going to be here tomorrow, what are we going to be able to do over and over? And then more important than that, what are those skill sets that add the most value to your company, that you guys have either a competency in, or it's critical to your business? And so I think that's, it kind of goes back to this, skill set. What are the skill sets that are required to be successful? What do you have? What do you want to keep? And what do you want to source from someone else?
Yeah, that really dovetails us nicely into this next conversation here, which is at the root of all this, right, is having the right talent assigned to the right types of work is hard. And these engineers that understand everything is code and kind of can do front to back development and understand provisioning the environments alongside the actual product and functionality, it's hard to do, and they're hard to find. And so that's where organizations look to staffing to their core competencies and leaving the heavy lifting to organizations like us. Cloud migration, it's not a differentiating thing, right? It's not core to your business. Matter of fact, it can stall and take away from your business drivers. So having a partner to help you with that journey is critical. And then, like we said, security is different in the cloud, right? We're now talking about shift left security by design. And we can't go back to the old way where we just say, well, send me some resumes and I'll sift through them and I'll try and get them inserted into my organization, especially when you have to think about culture and how that's going to be perceived and consumed. And so as a result, organizations are turning more to organizations like InterVision to be able to provide that next layer of service. And so you heard earlier what AWS is providing through AMS, but Dave, maybe you can talk to us now about what it means to do AMS with InterVision.
Yeah, absolutely. Dustin, this is really kind of goes back with what we've been talking about throughout this whole thing is, the concept of undifferentiated heavy lifting, right? So AMS rolled this out in 2006 at a keynote, and really it has to do with the fact that, undifferentiated heavy lifting, that's all the hard IT work that an organization does that doesn't really add value to the mission of the company, but you have to do anyway. So, you got to do patching, backups, a lot of the infrastructure tasks that are required to run any IT environment, no matter where it is. And unless you're a managed service provider like InterVision, these don't add to the bottom line revenue of the company. They're just costs of doing business. And so it goes to the point of, leveraging your partner's core competencies and finding out the best way to do stuff, right? So depending upon the size of your cloud environment and the types of folks you have in your IT organization, it may be more appropriate to work with a service provider and focus on those things that you guys do best that help support your mission of your company. Our approach is working with AWS, and we partner together. And this is a partnership where AWS provides some of the heavy lifting on the back end in terms of the automation, the platform, the security. guardrails, things like that. And InterVision focuses on our core competency, and that's service management. So we've been doing service management related activities for the last 15 years with all of our managed services. And that goes down to having key individuals that we work with that are a single point of contact. They're there for reporting, they're there for consulting, they're there to basically make sure that everything runs well and is being monitored, and that SLAs are being achieved, and that you're a happy customer. And in addition to that, we also include, so we've got two different roles that we provide each customer will become an AMS customer with InterVision. They get a cloud service delivery manager who's basically in charge of what I just said, the single point of contact, making sure that the business is running well, that the relationship is going well, and then also doing training. Things like real time, like game day scenarios, right? That's basically where you do a live walkthrough with the customer, hands-on keyboard, make sure they know exactly what they're doing. And it's not a one and done type of thing. These are things that can be done ongoing as new people are onboarded, or as as it makes sense. So there's a number of support related activities that we can provide that make this a top tier white glove service. And then we've also got a cloud architect who is basically a consultant for you to have as a designated resource to look at your environment, provide consulting, information on best practices, and make sure that you're having a good customer experience. This is all back-ended by AMS's 24/7 operations team, their automation, the platform, their security. So it's a really good partnership. We're thrilled to be working with AWS on this. As I said, we've been in the managed service business for 15 years, and we've been managing clouds for our own customers. But AWS approached us with this a couple of years ago, and we really liked the idea. And the more that we found out about it, the more we liked it. And so we jumped in with both feet.
So those customers that are already on AMS directly through Amazon, so the value add, it sounds like what you're saying, the value add they get by partnering with us is that kind of next level intimacy and understanding of their environment, their unique environment inside of AWS, and how we can then layer on additional support to the things that make them specific and unique in how they develop and deliver products.
Yeah, and I think that's also important to Justin look at it in terms of our whole ecosystem of services that we provide, right? So we're not just going to be the service management piece of AMS. We may also be the company that migrated you into AWS in the first place. So with all of our our core competencies around migration and end user computing and storage and these types of things, it really helps us not only provide you with a managed service, but to get you migrated in the cloud, and then provide some services that maybe AMS doesn't provide, because as we know that they have core competencies, and then they allow their partners to provide other core competencies to kind of work together. And so there's certain gaps that we've uncovered from time to time in AMS with specific customers, where they may want a customized version of the managed service versus the standard one, and we're absolutely able and willing to do that. So
yeah, as I hear about the the benefits of this, I mean, a lot of organizations talk about this, but I think certainly I've seen, working alongside you and with our clients, these are real tangible outcomes. And certainly all these areas are critical. We've hit on all of them, reducing stall and cost and security and onboarding and management. But as you think about, as we're building out our product portfolio at InterVision to support this model beyond just AMS, what are you thinking about as the natural evolution, and what can we offer customers today?
It's a great question, and so it really kind of goes back to what type of environments customers need support on, right? So within the AMS platform, there are certain services that are considered fully managed, and those are others that are considered self-provisioned, self-managed. We've actually had customers approach us and say, hey, we know this is an unmanaged service. Can you manage it for us? And we're like, absolutely, right? So we've done custom scopes of work around that. And I think the whole point of this is, with AMS, you've got a solid foundation. You've got highly automated environments, where 93% of change requests are automated. It's secure and compliant by default. And it has a lot of benefits there. And so as we add on more and more customers in this environment, we get requests to do things that maybe weren't anticipated or just outside of the core skill sets of what AMS wants to support. And we are absolutely happy to do that. We've been talking a lot about operational costs and reducing costs. And I think it's important to point out that it's not just, reducing costs is not the only benefit here. There's many others. Forrester did a study a year ago, which was released in March of 2020, which looked at 6 different AMS customers that had been with them for 2 years. And they found an average return on investment of 243%. So things like not only reducing cost, but reducing the potential of a security breach, allowing customers to focus their precious IT resources on those things that add value to the customer. So by the way, we are very happy to share that Forrester report with you. If you'd like, just let us know. But it really speaks to the value of this managed service beyond just cost savings and outsourcing IT. It can really benefit your organization in many, many different ways.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Real costs, certainly satisfy the CFO, right? But the opportunity costs are those detractors that erode everything from consumer confidence to even internal culture and employee satisfaction, which, ultimately, again, like humans are what make the business go. So, getting rid of those roadblocks so that organizations have confidence that they can develop and deliver with fidelity and efficacy, I think only makes them better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Guys, I just wanted to highlight 2 quick things from the audience that I think are just really pertinent right now. One is, as you mentioned, Dustin, the concept of thinking about everything as code. We had a few folks in the chat just like rally behind that. And I think that's a really important thing, a factor that maybe not many folks are considering, but just highlighting that a few folks in the audience definitely agreed with you on that subject. And then secondarily, looking at the poll results that we just conducted, the poll here today, live in the moment, around what's stalling folks' migrations that are actively on this call today. The two reasons that jumped out far and above all the others were security concerns and lack of skill expertise. And you think about what we're talking about here today, and I just think that's just a great kind of showing like these kinds of services can help get around some of those challenges and expedite the migration, so you can see that time to value more quickly than you would be able to otherwise. So just wanted to chime in. It seemed pertinent. So.
Well, I love that folks are gravitating and understanding that everything is code, and that by the way, as they start to make that shift in culture and mindset, it's going to enable them to close that skill gap, right? I mean, it's, I kind of think back, one of my favorite films of all time is Young Frankenstein, and when Terry Garr's character says to Igor, did the hump move? And he says, what hump? We can't ignore the fact that we've got this burden that we've got to think about relative to, hey, okay, if we, just pretending that gap doesn't exist doesn't make it go away. And by the way, we can help with that, right? We have DevOps competencies within our organization that is certified by AWS. So if your organization today is saying, well, we want to make that jump, but we don't even know how to get started on it, I would remind everyone that first and foremost, it's people first, right? You got to start with that, but then have the right partner that helps you build the right process and can bring the right tools to bear. The tooling's generally pretty easy. It can take care of itself. So that's great to hear. Dave, one of the things that you did hit on though, so you've certainly put in a valid plug for managing the opportunity costs and risk, but since you did hit on the real costs, the financial costs, maybe talk a little bit about cloud cost optimization and how we're helping customers there.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. So in what you're looking at here is results of a study done by IDG in 2020 that went out and surveyed a number of IT leaders and asked, what are some of the challenges that you're facing when it comes to adopting the cloud? The number one response by more than 40% of the respondents was controlling cloud costs. Yeah. So you can see that is a real challenge. And, the part of the cloud is, or the promise of the cloud is cost reduction, right? And CapEx to OpEx and, and pay as you go and, metered billing and that sort of stuff. But what companies are finding is that when they migrate into the cloud, it's not as simple as taking application A that you've estimated to, cost this much in the cloud and then moving it there and expecting that to be the results. It requires a lot of care and feeding and optimization and really grooming of the environment to make sure that it is, being managed properly. So that's a real key. And you can tell just by the results of this survey that we're not the only company, or you're not the only company that experiencing this type of situation.
So what's I mean, I know we've got our cloud cost optimization product offering. Maybe you can talk a little bit more about how it works.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So, I think that when it comes to CCO, there's cloud cost optimizations. There's a number of ways that we can help, but I think let's talk first a little bit about this complexity piece here. So when it comes to understanding cost management in the cloud, it's not just the visibility. The problems with visibility have to do with the complex pricing models, and not only that, the extreme granularity of some of these cloud bills. Some of these bills are thousands of line items long, and so being able to sift through that and know where the money's going and how do I cut some of this stuff back, that could be a challenge. Some of the other issues are ease of service provisioning. It's so easy to point and click and shoot and get your cloud resource spun up for that POC, but now it's been 2 months and that POC is still running 24/7 and everybody's forgotten about it, and it could run there forever if it's not maintained. So, tagging is a critical thing, knowing who the resources are, making sure that you're using best practices so that you can do chargebacks and all that kind of stuff. These are all sorts of things that can actually influence, the ability of, or the complexity and the how much you're spending in the cloud. But the one thing that I think doesn't get enough attention, Dustin, is the excess of alternative architectures in the cloud. There's about a half a dozen or more ways to solve any one architectural design, right? If you're rolling out an application, you could use this service or that service. You could use, elastic load balancers. You could do serverless. You could use a lot of different things. But what is the most cost effective? And I think a lot of companies, and people that are going to the cloud, they use the technologies that they're familiar with. They want to go and they say, hey, I'm a Windows guy. I've been doing Windows all my life. They've got RDS. That's great. I'll use SQL on RDS and life is good. But that may or may not be the best solution or the most optimized solution to the cloud. So it's a matter, Justin, of not just looking at, okay, how do I, eliminate zombie resources, and how do I, right-size instances, and how do I make sure that we've got, reserved instances on and commitments on the majority of our book. But it's also taking a step back and say, why are we doing it this way? And our cloud cost optimization product does all of those things.
Yeah, one of the things too that jumps off the page for me, especially for organizations that are relatively new into the cloud, there's what we call SOS, shiny object syndrome, right? We it's a new thing. We all want to get good at it, and so we try lots of different machinations to be successful at it. And one of the things that AWS has made it very easy to do is to consume different products and services for optimizing the way you get to the cloud. But one of the challenges there is that organizations can start to consume so many of those things, many of which that can solve the same problem different ways, like you talked about. And then they get technical debt that just kind of amasses over time as well, right? And so maybe you talk a little bit about, in these different areas, what are we looking at that helps them kind of identify those points of overspending?
Oh, yeah, sure. So, I'll talk a little bit about what cloud cost optimization means to InterVision. But essentially, it's a service. It uses typically native AWS tools, proprietary dashboard, but primarily it's process and expertise, right? So we have a well-defined process of over 35 steps. Each one of those has gone through piece by piece to make sure that we're covering each one. So, and then we've got a number of different cloud experts out there that can go on and go in. And we are so confident that we can save you money that we are actually offering a guarantee. So if we don't save you 30% or more, we'll offer a guarantee. It's SLA backed, and it'll be basically, we'll return a portion of the of the price you paid for this. There's a number of different ways that we do it, but it boils down to three main areas: cloud hygiene, making sure that you're turning off things that don't need to be on, that you're scheduling resources, that you're eliminating things that don't need to be running in the cloud, or data that's old, and then also looking at the size of the instances, right sizing, looking at the financials. Are you committed? Those are the primary ways that we can do that. But we also look at future state recommendations, which is a way to say, hey, we looked at this application that you built using those Lego blocks. You could probably save a ton of money if you did it this other way. Let's go down that path. So it's really a holistic approach to kind of look at all the components of cost optimization, and then try to actually save customers money. And like I say, we're so confident we're actually offering a guarantee. So it's pretty cool. The other nice thing about this is there's a near immediate return on investment. So if you pay for the service today and we save you 10% or 30% of your bill, that's month over month over month over month. So you could actually get an ROI and earn the money back within several months. So that's pretty awesome. But the most important thing is that when it comes to cost optimization, you're offloading cost management burdens. And the issue, Dustin, is almost every organization that we've worked with has the same issue. The people that are the most capable of resolving cloud cost issues, that doing cloud cost optimization, those are the same people that are in high demand in the organization for things like revenue generating activities, new releases, new code bases, things like that. So these are your top tier architects. And quite frankly, what happens in many organizations is that cost optimization gets deprioritized. They don't have time to go through on a monthly basis or on a regular basis and make sure that things are turned off and things are right sized, because they're busy doing other stuff. And so month after month, some of this stuff just keeps piling up and the bills pile up. And that's really the value here, is so that the key people in your organization are not tasked with having to find all this stuff. And then finally is just the optimized foundation. So our program is built on the cost optimization pillar of the AWS well-architected framework. So we go after every one of those different areas and make sure that we are achieving the optimal cost for all of our customers.
And for our customers, so this is great. Like a 30% savings for me is kind of a no-brainer, right? But customers that maybe don't want to put out an initial expense, is there a way for us to provide the service for them without them having to lay out money up front?
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially it's account transfer. So if you sign an account transfer agreement with InterVision, which essentially would make InterVision the biller and the biller of record on that, essentially that pays for the service, because we get a small portion of the funding back from AWS that we use to basically fund the service. So it's basically you sign the AWS transfer agreement, InterVision is the biller of record, and we provide the service free.
Does that cost our customers anything?
Nope.
So they pay the exact same bill they would have paid before.
Exact same bill.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, certainly you've talked about a couple of really critical things here, right? Cloud cost optimization, 30% guaranteed savings. You kind of can't go wrong with that. Anybody that doesn't like to save money, I mean, I just seems like a no-brainer for me. You really gave some great insight into what we're doing with AMS, and then, to follow on with what, with what AWS talked about, and Jay mentioned relative to how AMS is evolving, talking about what you're doing in the product team to help add additional value to that. We talked about the well-architected reviews in an earlier session. I want to go back to those for a second, because they are really great insight holistically to hit on all the points that Cecilia talked about in her opening discussion with Chris, right? How are we doing relative to security? How are we doing relative to costs? And what's going on from an architecture perspective? I mean, do we have an environment that is architected to spec relative to based on the best practices that Amazon has laid out? Earlier, John and I talked about staffing and how we can match resources. You and I talked a little bit about making sure you've got the right resources in the right chair and offloading commodity-based things. And that's another area where we can help. And then again, immersion days. And those of you who maybe haven't heard that term immersion days before, encourage you to go up to Amazon site and take a look at those immersion days. We are a certified immersion day partner, and if any of those are interesting, we can sponsor those and we can tailor them specifically to your needs. So great opportunities to help us get involved and enable us to help you further.